Just 1 second.
Paul, when you ready to come
Hi.
What's your understanding of how the Brighton Palace rivalry came about?
I don't have an understanding of it. I've been given the history, of course, the potted history, but I don't have anything particular to add. I'll just accept what the official version is out there, but I know the rivalry is very strong. It dates back a long time. And of course, every club has its classic derby match. We have several, of course, because we're a London club, but it's interesting that this one is regarded as the most important derby for the Palace fans, and we're preparing for it accordingly.
Wilfred Zaha says all the players are aware of it, they speak about it. How do you think this will differ from, say, a London derby?
I don't think it'll differ a great deal. A derby's a derby, and I mean what a derby is in terms of the way we all as managers, coaches and players see it is a particularly fierce rivalry where the fans care that extra bit about the result and the performance of the team, and that puts extra pressure on everybody to make certain the performance is a good one. So I don't think one needs to start ranking derbies, and a derby is a derby, and we at Crystal Palace, our fans, believe this is the most important one, and we'll take that as well.
Do you do anything differently as a manager when it comes to a game like this, where clearly the players are talking about it? Do you need to do anything different with it?
No, I think every game you need to do the same thing. You need to prepare your team to play the game. We have to make certain that we're ready physically, we're ready tactically, that mentally we're well prepared for the game, and that basically we're going to be prepared to make certain that we leave nothing on the pitch at the end of the game that would leave us regretting something. So I don't think that changes from one game to the next. What changes with the derby is the expectations, the pressure on everybody to not disappoint the fans, because the fans take the derby results a little bit harder if it doesn't go their way than they take other results.
What are your own favourite memories of your career games facing rivals?
I have lots, of course, but I suppose the first one was, I think it might have been my first Milan derby, when we had 2 players suspended, so we were weakened going into the derby, and I was suspended for the game, amazingly enough. One of the only times, I think the only time in my life I've been suspended, so I wasn't allowed to see the game from the touchline. So I remember that one very well, and I remember the derby at West Bromwich Albion with Wolverhampton Wanderers, because that's a very fierce derby and a very, very important derby to the West Brom and Wolves fans in the Black Country. So I remember that derby very well too.
You'll keep your cool tomorrow night. You'll keep your cool tomorrow night.
Yes. I didn't lose my cool to get suspended. I just happened to. I made a cynical remark to. We were winning at Lazio, and the referee added on about 8 minutes of time added on. So I said to the 4th referee, why don't you just play till they score and equalise and then blow the whistle? So it was a cynical comment I got back.
What have you made of the job Chris Hughton has done at Brighton?
Excellent job. He's done a good job in all of the clubs that he's managed. He's done a good job everywhere that he has been. This job in particular, of course, is one which has really lifted him up to the very top echelon of English football managers, quite rightly so. But he's someone who's been very widely respected in the professional football community amongst managers and coaches for a long, long time. Very, very big fish in the LMA, does a lot of good work for the LMA as well. And the job he's done at Brighton is exceptional. But it doesn't surprise me, because I know that's what he's capable of.
How would you assess your own recent performances, and what has changed in the last few weeks?
Well, still not enough points from the performances, but getting better in that respect. A bit of fortune on Saturday gave us the extra points that we think we've been sort of robbed of to some extent in some of the other games where the performances have been a bit better than the points total that we've got from the games. But I think after the first 7 games, in the next 6 that we've got our act together, we're playing better football. I think we're getting harder to beat and more likely to score goals. The players are working very hard, and I think we've set a benchmark now for what we want to do when we go on the field of play, how we want to play, how we want to defend, how we want to attack. And it's just a question of how often we can keep that up and how often we can give performances which satisfy us all. When I say satisfy us all, I don't just mean the chairman, the board and the fans. I mean satisfy us, the manager, the coach and the players, because we have set standards that we think we're capable of reaching. And in the last 6 games, I would like to think we've reached those standards, but now we've got to keep it up.
And although you're still bottom of the table, do you look at the league table with encouragement, given those reasons?
I don't look at the league table. I'll start looking at the league table when we're in a good position. Until then, I don't look at it. I don't need to depress myself.
Just finally, I suppose there's a chance that Alan Pardew could be in West Brom in time to play Palace. Looking beyond Brighton, any concern or impact do you think that could have on the game at the weekend?
I think the most impact on a game of football is produced by the players, who West Bromwich Albion appoint as managers. Actually got nothing to do with me. And you know, with the rate of turnover of managers today, it's going to be a fairly common occurrence, I think, that a manager is meeting as an opponent a club that he's managed before. So if it does happen to be Alan Pardew, it will just be another instance of a manager who's been at one Premier League club getting a job at another Premier League club.
That turnover of the manager, is it good for the game? Is it keep people on their toes, or do you get frustrated?
Too many philosophical questions for me, I'm afraid. I'm a simple football manager. I can't answer all these philosophical questions.
Simple question to start with the Roy team news. Any doubts for tomorrow? Any updates?
No. I think everyone came through the game, which was fortunate. As usual, after a game where you've got a short turnaround, there's always the odd knock or two to take into consideration, but everybody trained this morning and I'm expecting everyone to declare themselves fit and ready to play tomorrow.
You mentioned that you've been through many derby games yourself in the past in the dugout. Do you look forward to them? Because for fans sometimes it's a mix of anticipation but also dread.
I don't dread the game. I don't dread any games. I mean, I think once you start dreading games, then it's not a good profession to be in. You should be looking forward to games. You should be taking inspiration from the fact that here is another game. Here is another big occasion of which you are a part. So dread is the wrong word. Before every game, I think that it's even important to feel some sort of nervous tension, because of course we want to win the game, we don't want to lose the game. But we know that the only thing that can help us in that respect is to be well prepared and then to give a good performance. And so that's where I am at the moment. I'm hoping to see a good performance tomorrow, that we're going to continue playing in the style, in the way that we've been playing. And then of course you hope that, you know, something untoward or unfortunate doesn't happen to you and that you get the rub of the green. A couple of times recently we haven't had the rub of the green. On Saturday we did have the rub of the green.
And your experience of many derby games as a manager, can that help prepare some of the players who may not be used to the kind of special atmosphere there's going to be tomorrow?
Well, you like to think that in terms of preparing players, that what you do in the build-up to games helps those that need help, and that you're saying the right things to the right people. But I don't know that's necessarily exaggerated just because it happens to be a derby game. I think it's relevant at that point for all the matches you play. And as far as the derby is concerned, the players will hear enough from the fans around them, so a lot of your work will be done. And to some extent, I think it's important as a manager and coach that you don't add to that hype because what you need players to do when they play the game is to play both with their head and their heart. And if you're not careful, if you put too much pressure or too much emphasis on the heart, maybe we won't have the head that we need tactically and technically to win the game.
I spoke to Luca earlier. He's played in some big derbies.
Yes.
Red Star against Partizan, Olympiacos against Panathinaikos. And he said that in his experience, only one of 7 or 8 derby games he's played in has actually been football. It's generally been a bit more of a fight on the pitch. Do you think that that's something that could happen tomorrow, that the football may be affected by the occasion?
No, because both Brighton and ourselves are football teams that don't play in that way. We don't base our game on intimidation or gung-ho style football. It'll be a battle between what they do and do well and what we do and are trying to do well. So that doesn't bother me. And of course it's very different if you're talking about, the games in Serbia and Greece to games in England. We have derby games here and they are much hyped. Let's take a recent one between Arsenal and Tottenham where you can't turn the television on for a whole week without hearing about Arsenal and Tottenham. But in the game, it's all about the football.
And just finally from me, I know you're not looking at the table, but if you were to win tomorrow, you could be level on points with the safety mark. How much of a lift could it be, not just in terms of the extra points, but winning a derby game if you were to come away with a victory?
Well, winning away from home would be good, because at the moment, we haven't even taken a point away from home. Because our start of the season was so awful that we haven't taken a point away from home. So that doesn't concern me as such, because we aren't playing and working now as perhaps we were at the start of the season. We have improved, in my opinion, in terms of our approach to things. So I know the points will come. So it would be very nice if they started to come this week. We have 2 very difficult fixtures, away to Brighton, away to West Bromwich Albion. But for me, I'm banking on us playing well enough to get points from those games. And of course, if it comes tomorrow night, that's good, because it takes a little bit of pressure off the need to win on Saturday. But an ideal week would see us win all 3 games, and then of course people will be talking about us for the Champions League, won't they? That's the way football goes.
Mike.
Hi Roy. A lot of the Palace fans and perhaps even the players and the management staff could have perhaps been forgiven after the Chelsea result, thinking that Palace had turned a corner. In the end, perhaps didn't turn out to be that way. How do you prevent the result against Stoke at the weekend being a similar fault?
Well, I don't know. You're hitting me with a fact about people thought that when we beat Chelsea we turned the corner. I've got to say I wasn't aware of that. I mean, nothing in my awareness led me to believe that suddenly people were seeing us totally differently because after losing 7 games we suddenly win one. I think people just saw that as a good performance on the day, and let's hope we can keep it up. As it happens, I believe that the fans, especially the ones who follow us home and away, and there's a lot of those, I think they are already seeing a team that they can identify with better than the team that they identified or saw at the start of the season. I think they are getting some sort of belief that even though we were at the bottom of the table, that we've really given ourselves a mountain to climb, that there's some chance that we'll be able to do that. And I personally reject any thoughts of now is the moment you have turned the corner. I don't know that you turn corners. Everywhere you go, there's a new corner in front of you, somewhere to turn. So we've zigzagged past 1 or 2 corners that we could have got stuck at in the last 5 or 6 games, but there'll be lots of other corners being sort of thrown up in front of us as we move forward, and I will be trying my very best to make certain that the players realise that what it's about for us is taking every game and making certain that in that game we do our level best to get something from it. Now, some games we're going to come off feeling very disappointed about because we've lost and not played very well. Other games we'll come off disappointed perhaps because we've only got a draw we should have won. And then there'll be those games as well where you come off the field with a draw thinking that was a good point today because we've had to work very hard for it and maybe the opponents were better than we were. That's the type of mindset that I like to try and encourage with the players, and to put aside these thoughts of now you've turned the corner, now you're on easy street, now you're out of it because you've got no chance. It's very, very important when you find yourself at the bottom of the table, as we have done since the start of the season, that your mentality is strong and that you don't allow yourself to suddenly start going on a roller coaster. So when you win a game, you think, well, that's it, now we've done it, because you haven't. And by the same token, when you lose a game, you're not out of it either, as we proved after the first 7 games, gradually trying to claw ourselves back a little bit closer to the pack.
And just finally from me, I appreciate the position that Palace are in at the moment. Every game has its own challenges and is tough, but on paper at least, the next 4 to 5 fixtures certainly are a bit, perhaps more winnable than your first 4 or 5 fixtures in charge. Would you go up there?
Which reminds me of a story of a friend of mine who, a Swedish boy, when I was working in the UAE and with the national team, and they asked me to recommend a coach for them, and I recommended his coach, and they interviewed him and liked him very much, and he came over, and on his first day he had a meeting with the directors, and they put the fixture list in front of him, and they sat there and said, right, we'll lose that one and that one there, we'll win that and we'll win that. And he said to him, well, that's very interesting, so perhaps I should go home then. Because if all the matches are won and lost and we've finished in the middle of the table, you don't need me at all. And that's how I feel when people talk to me about matches on paper. I've never played matches on paper. I've never lost a match on the tactical board with the magnets that you move around. But I've lost lots of matches on the field of play where 11 guys have played against 11 guys. And I've won a few too. So I've got to say I find it hard to relate to those things. You know, people were telling me that it would be an easier game against Stoke, and Crystal Palace got a good record against Stoke. As it happened, Stoke came here and played very well, and we had to really pull out all the stops and even have a little bit of good fortune to win that game. So I prefer not to listen to those type of predictions and just to get on with it and to fear every opponent as I've always done, and only consider games to have been easy after they're over and we've won them. Cheers.
That's into the broadcast section.